AEW President Tony Khan says the AEW Dynamite Max report number that was hitting headlines this week, suggesting that every episode of Dynamite has been viewed over 1 million times once the show was simulcast on Max beginning this year, is consistent with everything that they've been told from Warner Brothers Discovery. We'll let you know the details on that. Plus, Tony Khan also says that the Jon Moxley spiked back spot on Dynamite was a risk that really paid off. Ethan Page, a now WWE NXT superstar, returns to TNA Wrestling on challenge for the TNA title at TNA Rebellion. Chris Jericho versus Bandito in a title versus mask match at AEW Dynasty is confirmed. Tony Khan also teases some big international TV deals for AEW. He was also asked about the possibility of Sting inducting Lex Luger into the WWE Hall of Fame. Mark Davis reportedly has sustained an injury. Speaking of injuries, you have an update on Jay White's injury that saw him removed from the Men's Owen Hart Cup. Ray Phoenix's creative plans in WWE have possibly been revealed. The nights for which the confirmed WrestleMania 41 matches are currently planned for have set to be revealed too. Kyle Fletcher versus Mark Briscoe in the Owen Hart Cup is confirmed for AEW Dynasty. Tessa Blanchard will be challenging for the TNA Knockouts World Championship at Rebellion. The TNA International Championship, the first ever champion, will be crowned at TNA Unbreakable. More names have been added to the TNA Ultimate X match for the X Division Championship at Rebellion. 4 upcoming WWE Premium Live Event dates have seemingly been revealed. Several NXT talent compete in matches on TNA Impact last night. And Cal Bloom, formerly known as Von Wagner in WWE NXT, competes on Ring of Honor on Honor Club. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of professional wrestling. As always, you can join the WN365 roster. You can scan the QR code on the screen right there. Links in the video description, or you can click the join button. You get your badges, your emojis, and your exclusive members-only content. And also be sure to subscribe. You can see right there we are well over 20,000 subscribers. Only 30 to go until 20,300. There are plenty of stories to get into today. Let's begin with Tony Khan commenting on a report that made the headlines and got a lot of people talking this week. Now, ever since the turn of the new year, the conversation around All Elite Wrestling's viewership numbers have been problematic due to the fact that both AEW Dynamite and AEW Collision are simulcast on cable television and on the Max streaming service. An overall viewership number has been difficult to get a hold of. However, a recent report suggested that the number of people who watch AEW on Max is around the 500,000 mark, which, taken into account AEW's weekly ratings, would put a show like Dynamite over the 1 million viewers mark each and every episode. Now, AEW President Tony Khan was asked about this during the Dynasty media call, and while he confirmed that he doesn't know the exact figures from Max, the report that was recently released has a lot of truth to it. He said, quote, "I thought that was a really exciting report for AEW and very consistent with everything we've been told, that while the numbers are being kept close to the vest, we're one of the top sports streaming shows, and everything in that report was consistent with what I've heard," end quotes. On top of this report, the ratings for Dynamite have regularly grown since the beginning of February, while Collision has earned some of the biggest ratings ever since the beginning of 2025. Khan explained that the relationship between AEW and Warner Brothers Discovery is at an all-time high, with Khan using examples such as the recent promotion of major movies on Dynamite and the partnerships they have developed with the likes of DC Comics in recent months. Khan rounded off by saying that it is a very exciting time to be a part of AEW and that things are only going to get better as time goes on. Now, Khan was also asked about a controversial spot that happened recently on AEW Dynamite. The sight of AEW World Champion Jon Moxley wincing from a back full of nails remains a polarizing one, as some felt it was too gruesome or dangerous, while others felt it was perfectly aligned with AEW's mission of being an alternative product to WWE, the pro wrestling industry leader. On the AEW Dynasty media call, AEW CEO Tony Khan acknowledged that the spot was hardcore, but at the same time, it proved to be a profitable one for the company. Quote, "It was a great street fight, Mox versus Cope. It was a big success for us," Khan said. "If you look, the video has been watched millions of times across multiple platforms, and the show delivered. It was a great event for AEW." It was a dangerous moment in the match when Jon Moxley landed on Spike, and Spike went into Jon Moxley's back in the form of all of those nails. It's a hardcore wrestling moment. It was something that was a risk that Adam Copeland and Jon Moxley took in the match, and it really paid off. Jon Moxley was able to return to the ring last night and return to the ring at AEW Dynasty. Those are very tough guys, Adam Copeland and Jon Moxley. They put their bodies through a lot, end quote. Now, recently, AEW star Jeff Jarrett echoed similar sentiments, noting that despite the controversy surrounding it, the spot itself generated notable revenue through social media clips. As it stands, video of the impaling has drawn over 13 million views on AEW's YouTube channel. In the end, Moxley overcame the pain from the Spike bat, called Spike to defeat Cope and retain his AEW World Championship on Dynamite. Looking ahead, he will now defend the title against Swerve Strickland this Sunday at AEW Dynasty. Of course, we'll have a watch-along and a post-show for that event, so be sure to join us 15 minutes before the show goes on the air live here on the YouTube channel. Now let's go over to TNA Impact last night, because Ethan Page made his return to TNA Wrestling on the April 3rd episode of TNA Impact. Page interrupted Frankie Kazarian, who called his shot and said he would be challenging for the TNA Championship at TNA Rebellion. Page came out and revealed he signed the contract to face Joe Hendry for the TNA Championship at TNA Rebellion. Kazarian tried to attack Page, but he was kicked in the face for his trouble. Of course, Ethan Page is no stranger to TNA Wrestling. This was his first appearance in TNA/Impact since he was killed at the Hard to Kill pay-per-view back in 2021 by his alter ego, the Karate Man, is a former two-time Impact Tag Team Champion. It was later confirmed that Page and Kazarian will challenge Joe Hendry for the TNA World Championship in a triple threat match at TNA Rebellion. Now, a match has been officially confirmed now for AEW Dynasty this coming Sunday. Chris Jericho will defend his Ring of Honor World Championship against Bandito at AEW Dynasty, and Bandito will put his mask on the line. Jericho made the challenge on the March 26th episode of AEW Dynamite, but the bout was not made official until Thursday night. Jericho successfully defended the Ring of Honor World Championship against Bandito on the February 22nd episode of AEW Collision. Things became personal at AEW Revolution when Jericho attacked Bandito's family Gravity and stole his mask. This match has now been officially confirmed for the upcoming pay-per-view. Now, Tony Khan has teased some big international TV deals coming up in the future. Now, 2025 has marked a major change in the way AEW and WWE broadcast their weekly programming, with WWE now broadcasting WWE Monday Night Raw on Netflix, while Max has begun simulcasting AEW Dynamite and AEW Collision. According to AEW President Tony Khan, the move makes AEW more competitive. Quote, "We have been working on some big international TV deals," Tony Khan said during the pre-AEW Dynasty media call, trumpeting AEW's recent gains in England. Quote, "Double-digit growth on both Dynamite and Collision in the UK. We've built something great with ITV." When you take a look at the competition and how some of the deals have moved, there are a lot of markets in the world right now where I think there are going to be great opportunities for AEW, especially where WWE has moved to a streaming strategy. According to Khan, WWE moving its global broadcast to Netflix has led to AEW becoming the most watched wrestling program in the United Kingdom, which further bolsters the company's prospects in the country. Quote, "I think that's a great example of how we can be really effective in a market, building a relationship with the fans in that market," Khan said. Happy with the fact that the country has played host to two of the biggest AEW shows in the company's history, that being All In London's Wembley Stadium in 2023 and 2024. Not only has AEW begun streaming on Max, where the pay-per-views will soon be available, but also on Amazon Prime, where AEW pay-per-views have begun broadcasting as of last month's AEW Revolution event. Now, he was also asked inevitably about the prospect of Sting appearing at the WWE Hall of Fame this year. As Lex Luger's induction into the WWE Hall of Fame gets closer and closer, two questions continue to loom large. The first is, will AEW owner Tony Khan allow Sting to induct Luger, his longtime friend, into the Hall of Fame? The second is whether Khan should allow Sting to induct Luger, given the ongoing hostilities between AEW and WWE. Well, the second question remains unanswered. The first was asked by Alex Hunt yesterday while Khan was holding court for that media call for AEW Dynasty. For the most part, Khan seemed to kind of sidestep whether or not he'd allow Sting to induct Luger. He said, quote, "I'm not sure," Khan said. "I'm very focused on AEW Dynasty. Obviously, it's a few days away. I talked to Sting recently before AEW Revolution, looking back on some great memories. Of course, it's hard to think about AEW Revolution without thinking of Sting. He debuted at AEW Revolution and ended his career at AEW Revolution 3 years later. So I'll always think of Sting during Revolution season. So we caught up on the phone right around the pay-per-view, and that's the last time we've spoken. So I haven't heard from him about that. But certainly he's doing very well, and that relationship and that friendship means so much to me, and we're all very grateful of Sting. I was just doing an interview today earlier when they asked me some questions about Sting, and anytime I get asked, I will speak glowingly, lovingly, as the biggest Sting fan. So I have to say, the last time I talked to Sting, that didn't come up. I would have to talk to him about that. But like I said, I'm very focused on Dynasty and excited for Sunday." Now, AEW seemingly has been bitten with the injury bug. Unfortunately, Fightful Select reported this week that Orange Cassidy and Switchblade Jay White both sustained legitimate injuries. Unfortunately, it seems like it hasn't ended there. Fightful Select are reporting they have learned that Mark Davis sustained an injury during his match with Powerhouse Hobbs last week, which was brought to an end earlier than it was supposed to. Now, Fightful say they've not heard of any particulars outside of AEW is hopeful he'd only be sidelined for 4 to 8 weeks. Sources in AEW that Fightful spoke to felt horrible for Davis, noting how hard he worked to return from his previous injury. Speaking of that injury to Switchblade Jay White, we've got more details on just what could be wrong with the former IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. Switchblade Jay White had recently found himself as an entrant and declared himself as an entrant in the men's 2025 Owen Hart Foundation tournament, with the former New Japan star aiming to win the entire competition and capture the AEW World Championship at All in Texas, something he'd been talking about for many months. However, it was announced on the April 2nd edition of AEW Dynamite that White had been removed from the tournament after being attacked backstage, leading to Fightful Select reporting that White had suffered an injury that required surgery. During a recent edition of Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez touched on the injury White had suffered and speculated how long he could be out of action for. Quote, "So I heard Jay White has a broken hand and needs surgery," Meltzer said, leading to Alvarez to say this, "I heard that Jay White was injured, but I guess surgery, I just heard that it was not expected he was going to be out a really long time, whatever that means, but he's out. It's a legitimate injury." White has since been replaced in the tournament by AEW's newest signing, that being Kevin Knight, who White defeated on the March 29th episode of AEW Collision. Knight will face Will Ospreay in the first round of the tournament, with their match taking place at Dynasty this weekend, a match which was originally meant to be Ospreay versus White, according to Meltzer. Unfortunately for White, this is the second year in a row where he sustained an injury around the Owen Hart Foundation tournament. He would suffer a broken foot during his semi-final match of Hangman Page in the 2024 edition of the tournament, causing him to miss 3 months of action, which included the AEW All in London event at Wembley Stadium. Now, going from AEW to a former AEW star in Rey Fenix, WWE will be welcoming former AEW International Champion Rey Fenix to the company on tonight's episode of SmackDown, following a series of vignettes that have aired on the show in recent weeks. Fenix signed with WWE in March after a lengthy battle with his former employer to get his release, which AEW President Tony Khan eventually granted, but it seems that Fenix will have some familiar ground to cover when he debuts tonight, as Dave Meltzer stated on a recent edition of Wrestling Observer Radio that his first feud will be against a former AEW star. Quote, "Fenix is going to be feuding with Andrade. I don't know if they'll do it on Friday, but that is the plan." Meltzer's co-host Brian Alvarez went on to ask if Fenix or his brother Penta could be potentially drafted after WrestleMania 41 so that the Lucha Brothers could have a run as a tag team, to which Meltzer said that is a possibility. Fenix and Andrade had crossed paths before their shared time in AEW, but after a meeting in multi-man matches and battle royals, they would feud in the summer of 2022, with Fenix having Penta by his side, while Andrade was aligned with Rush as a member of La Faction Ingobernables. Fenix became the latest in the long line of AEW stars to make the jump to WWE in 2025. His brother Penta officially debuted on the January 13th episode of WWE Raw, while Ricky Starks, now known as Ricky Saints, followed a month later in WWE NXT. After Fenix, both Malachi Black and Miro, known by WWE fans as Aleister Black and Rusev, have creative plans in place, with Rusev reportedly already signed to the company. Now, let's go over to WrestleMania 41. We've got details on just what matches are going to take place on which specific nights. We are currently just over 2 weeks away from this year's WrestleMania event in Las Vegas, and there are currently 7 matches officially announced for the show. With it being announced that CM Punk versus Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins would close night 1 of the show, it has led to speculation on which nights each match would take place. Per WrestleVotes, the current planned nights for each announced match have been revealed, with Roman Reigns, Rollins, and Punk indeed set for night 1, while Cody Rhodes and John Cena is set for night 2. They tweeted out, quote, "According to sources, below is how the individual nights of WrestleMania are currently placed. Night 1, Punk versus Reigns versus Rollins, Gunther versus Uso, Owens versus Orton, Charlotte versus Tiffany. Night 2, Cena versus Rhodes, Belair versus Ripley versus Sky, Styles versus Paul." While still 2 weeks out, it's possible plans and ideas can change, but this is the format Creative is working on. There are still a number of seemingly planned WrestleMania matches that have not yet been announced. Speaking of announced matches for upcoming events, Kyle Fletcher will be in action this weekend at AEW Dynasty. Another Owen Hart Foundation men's tournament bout has been added to upcoming pay-per-view this Sunday. Tony Khan announced that Mark Briscoe will take on Kyle Fletcher at AEW Dynasty. The bout is a first-round matchup in the Owen Hart Foundation men's tournament. Will Ospreay versus Kevin Knight is the other men's Owen Hart tournament bout scheduled for the AEW Dynasty on April 6th. Going over to TNA Wrestling, and the triple main event for TNA Rebellion is official. Santina Marella announced that Tessa Blanchard will challenge Masa Slamovich for the TNA Knockouts World Championship at TNA Rebellion on April 27th. Plus, Santina confirmed that Joe Hendry will defend his TNA World Championship against Ethan Page and Frankie Kazarian in a three-way bout at the event. As previously confirmed, the Hardy Boys will defend their TNA World Tag Team Championships against Nick and Ryan Nemeth. Speaking of titles in TNA Wrestling, the TNA Digital Media Championship is officially no more. Instead, Santina Marella has introduced the TNA International Championship, wanting to take the TNA Digital Media title from Steph DeLanda and Mance Warner. A tournament will be held with the first ever champion being crowned at TNA Unbreakable. Every match in the tournament will be a three-way match as a tribute to the TNA Unbreakable 2005 bout between Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, and Christopher Daniels. Eddie Edwards versus Ace Austin versus Steve Macklin is the first match announced for the tournament. The second match will feature Zachary Wentz, JDC, and Eric Young. The third match will see Sami Callihan take on Mance Warner and AJ Francis. Of course, if we get any more details on the International Championship, we'll let you know in an upcoming video. A big match has some participants, that being an Ultimate X match. Moose's challengers at TNA Rebellion will be very worthy competitors. Moose is defending the TNA X Division Championship in an Ultimate X match at TNA Rebellion. Santina Marella announced on the April 3rd episode of TNA Impact the match would include Leon Slater and Matt Cardona, in addition to several more names that will have to qualify for the match. Slater is a fast-rising star in the division, and Matt Cardona is no stranger to death matches and has captured the WWE Intercontinental Championship in a ladder match at WrestleMania in the past. After that, it was announced that El Hijo del Vikingo would be returning to TNA to join the fray. Vikingo hasn't wrestled for TNA since Bound for Glory 2024, where he lost to Speedball Mike Bailey. This will be the first Ultimate X match since TNA emergence in August of 2024. Now, several dates for upcoming WWE Premium Live events have possibly been revealed. With WWE WrestleMania 41 just over 2 weeks away, WWE recently announced the first Premium Live event following WrestleMania, Backlash, would take place in St. Louis, Missouri on May 10th. Following Backlash, no other events have been announced until SummerSlam in August, though there have been reports about potential return of the Evolution Premium Live event. WWE had previously announced an upcoming Saturday night's main event television special for July 12th, the same date as AEW's All In Texas pay-per-view, with more events have now been seemingly revealed. Per Corey Hayes of PWN, WWE is set to run a special event 3 weeks in a row in the summer, starting with the 2025 Night of Champions event in Saudi Arabia. The following week, WWE will be running the Evolution PLE on July 5th, with it reportedly slated to take place at the Mohegan Sun in Connecticut the week before the aforementioned Saturday night's main event show on July 12th. On top of the 3 consecutive weeks of events, Hayes also confirmed that the 2025 Money in the Bank event would take place in the summer, slated to take place on June 7th, reportedly slated for the Intuit Dome in Los Angeles, California. Going back to TNA Impact last night, we saw more NXT crossover on the show. The women of TNA Wrestling picked up some victories on the April 3rd episode of TNA Impact. Lash Legend and Dakara Jackson, NXT's Meta Girls, picked up a victory over former TNA Knockouts World Tag Team Champion Spitfire, Danny Luna and Jody Threat. They won the match with their wheelbarrow and cutter finish. They have stated in the past that they want to win the TNA Knockouts World Tag Team Championships. Later in the evening, JC Jane and Jasmine Nick successfully teamed with Tessa Blanchard to defeat Masa Slamovich, Zaya Brookside, and Lee Ying Lee. The ending of the match came when Blanchard defeated Slamovich. She will now challenge Slamovich for the TNA Knockouts World Championship at Rebellion. And finally, we saw some NXT influence on Ring of Honor last night in the form of a former WWE NXT superstar. A former NXT superstar competed on the latest episode of Ring of Honor on Honor Club. Cal Bloom, known as Von Wagner in WWE NXT, teamed with Dion Rusman on the April 3rd episode of ROH to lose to the Gates of Agony. Rusman is a graduate of Seth Rollins' Black and Brave Academy, and Wagner was a major character in NXT until being released by WWE in 2024. He's also the son of Wayne Bloom, became known as Bo Beverly in WWE. Bloom's appearance in ROH comes exactly 1 year and 1 day after his last WWE NXT match, where he lost to Lexis King on the April 2nd, 2024 edition of the show. On March 15th, he made his post-WWE debut at a Midwest All-Star Wrestling event, defeating Shay Diesel. He recently appeared on AEW Dynamite as a security guard. But there you go, guys. The latest pro wrestling news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right-hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.